Hello and welcome to All Things Player King. All Things Player King is a channel dedicated to the exploration and deconstruction of the play The Player King, written by Darin Dahms. I am Darin Dahms, and I will be your guide and narrator on this magical, theatrical, and literary journey. Let me start by saying thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and perhaps joining me on this unusual adventure. If you are an actor or a writer or an educator, a student of the theater, a lover of Shakespeare, a history buff, or just plain curious, I'm hoping that you might be inspired and motivated and intrigued and challenged, maybe moved, maybe a little bit entertained by the stories and anecdotes I will be sharing with you about the creation and performance of this one-man show over the next several episodes. I should warn you that all of this comes from a very personal place, and what you are likely to experience here will be very spontaneous and authentic and fluid and conversational. This is not intended to be an academic treatise on playwriting or a manifesto of acting or a lesson in American history, but more of a memoir of my experience in the theater, wrestling with the creation of this furious beast. Now, what is The Player King? This is a good question. The Player King is a one-man play that I wrote for myself to perform. I actually hadn't any intention of publishing it, but I found myself taking care of my parents in the dark days of COVID, and I was having extreme withdrawal symptoms from the theater, and I decided that maybe I could cobble together my wrinkled, coffee-stained notes and rumpled performance drafts of the play and put together an actual script that might be fit for public consumption. But really, what is it? Well, The Player King. The Player King is a one-man performance piece inspired by the lives of Edwin Booth, Junius Brutus Booth, and John Wilkes Booth. It takes place sometime during the year following the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Edwin Booth, perhaps the greatest Shakespearean actor in American history, has been forced to quit the stage because of his brother's heinous crime. He is questioning whether he can return to the theater after the tragedy that has befallen his family. Part soliloquy, part memory play, The Player King is Edwin's personal investigation into his relationship to his art and a search for an answer to the question, what does it mean to be an actor? At least that's the blurb that I wrote for the program, and it appears on the back of the text itself. The Player King is packed with monologues, lots of Shakespeare that I liberated and recontextualized from some of his more famous plays, and of course all of the dialogues that I wrote for these three actors to whom I have given voice. Friends of mine have said that they wish that they had the script as a resource when they were in college, and also the play has started to find its way into secondary curriculum, and for that I am extraordinarily grateful and humbled, a little baffled. Anyway, the play is available on Amazon.com. You can search it, The Player King, a play by Darin Dahms. I will also include a link in the description below. But I guess the more important question might be, why The Player King? And that is a little more subjective. So, when I was living in Los Angeles, I decided that I wanted to write something to challenge me, something that would be my own, that would challenge me as an actor. And I had been, I'd been stewing about with several ideas about what the subject matter might be. And if you've spent any time in Los Angeles, you know that there's like 400 one-man shows going on at any time. I knew that what I wanted to do was write first of all, what I wanted to see. I wanted to write a piece that would be something that I would want to go see. So I had been tossing around with several ideas, and I had sketches here and sketches there of one thing or another, and some of those may evolve into plays later on. But at this point, I was, still searching, and at some point, my father sent me a copy of Prince of Players by Eleanor Ruggles. And this was a biography of Edwin Booth, relatively famous biography of Edwin Booth. I think the book is now out of print. It was written quite some time ago. Anyway, I started reading this play, and as I started reading this book, I was just so inspired by the journey of Edwin Booth and the fascinating characters in the Booth family. And of course, you have John Wilkes Booth, his father, Junius Brutus Booth, and I was just so intrigued. And then I began to feel this kind of resonance and kinship with the struggles and the desires and the dreams and the fears of Edwin Booth as they unfolded in the pages of the book. And at that point, I was hooked. I decided that this was going to be the vehicle for my piece. And I will talk more about this in the episodes to come. But it was really finding this person and feeling a relationship with this character across time, with this person across time. And knowing that the struggles, of an actor in the 19th century were not that much different from the struggles of an actor in the 21st century, I suppose. So Edwin Booth became the protagonist of the show. And then I knew that I was going to include Junius Brutus Booth, his father, as a character. And then the main antagonist was, of course, going to end up being John Wilkes Booth. And I was tossing this idea around, and I was writing notes and sketching out monologues and everything, but never really getting anything committed to paper. And then in 2011, I had to go back to Indiana to visit and take care of my parents, as we often do. And I just got stuck there for a while. And I was kind of depressed and kind of morose and kind of aimless. And I was missing my daughter, who was back in Los Angeles. And my dear friend, Brad Highland, finally sat me down, and he said, "Look, you've been telling me about this play that you've been wanting to write, and you're stuck here. Why don't you just sit down and write it?" And he put me down in front of the computer. My friend Rob, I didn't have a computer. My friend Rob Newland reminded me recently that he lent me his laptop so that I could get to work. And you'll hear more about these folks later on too, but just surrounded by friends and family, I sat down and very quickly wrote the play during the winter and spring of 2011, and then performed it to a very large audience, one night only, at the Battelle Center in Mishawaka, Indiana, to mainly family and friends, and that was the beginning of the performance of the Player King. But why the Player King? Yes. As I said, I wanted to challenge myself, and what I wrote is incredibly challenging. I give voice to some of my own feelings, or there's a lot of resonance in the historical lives and documents of the characters that I'm presenting in the play. And it allowed me to say what I wanted to say about theater, about acting, about family, about my experiences in this world, and hopefully those things. And I know through performance that these stories have resonated with other actors, and I really did write it with other actors in mind, with my friends in mind, knowing that eventually I would be performing it in Los Angeles, and eventually there would be like-minded people sitting in the audience. Now, I hope it has a broader reach. I know that it has a broader reach than that, but that was really the impetus, to have this sort of discussion with my fellow artists and my fellow creators and my family and my friends. And so there you have it. That is why the Player King. So, moving forward with this channel, All Things Player King, let me tell you what to expect. So in the next several episodes, I will be reading scenes from the Player King, and then reviewing the scene as a jumping off point to talk about the writing, to elaborate on the characters, to share anecdotes about the performances, to describe and thank people from my life who inspired and motivated the process, discuss some of the elements that didn't make it into the play, into the story, or were edited out. I guess you can think of All Things Player King as my extended DVD version of the play with supplemental material, I guess. It is my hope that this will be balm and inspiration for my fellow writers and actors, and maybe a resource for educators interested in the script, and really maybe, hopefully, just a wholesome good time for anyone intrigued and puzzled by the act of creation. So I submit to you with deep gratitude and all humility, All Things Player King.